Hi, everybody. It's me, your buddy Scott Stanford. Welcome to the Infrastructors, the premier podcast for engaging conversations with influential thought leaders in AI, tech, government policy, and smart city innovation. Today's guest, you're going to love this one, Senior Director of Policy and Government Relations for the Governors Highway Safety Association, Russ Martin. Russ, thank you so much for joining us here on the Infrastructors, my friend. Listen, as a nation, right, we're all a little frustrated that we're seemingly polarized and we can't all row in the same direction no matter how big, how small the issue might be. But, I mean, it's really different at the GHSA, right? You guys are a nonprofit that aligns the states in moving towards zero deaths and the nation's roadways, through leadership, partnership, advocacy, right? Your state members are appointed by their governors, which makes this a positive and a bipartisan group as well. I think the country really we need more of that, right? And tell our audience more about the GHSA's mission, if you would.
Sure, of course. So we're the Association of State and Territorial Highway Safety Offices. As you say, they're all state agencies on the state level within state government, but they support behavioral highway safety programs on the state and local level. So these are programs focused on things that drivers do on the roadways that are unsafe. Things like impaired driving, distracted driving, speeding, wearing your seatbelt. And that's in contrast to traffic engineers that are focused on the built environment and all the work that's done on the federal level to regulate vehicles. Our members are really focused on a lot of these behavioral issues that are the underpinning for a lot of crashes that are occurring out there on our roadways.
When you talk about behavioral issues, is it alcohol? Is it the distracted driving? I mean, which is the number one cause, the common cause of accident fatalities and car crashes?
Well, if you look at national data, you will see that impaired driving, speeding, and lack of seatbelt use are the three common factors in the vast majority of fatal crashes in the United States. And that's true. But it kind of obscures the bigger picture, too. This is data that comes from police crash reports, and so it's focused on things that police probably pay the most attention to. But we also know that the way the roadway is built, the safety of the vehicle, the emergency crash response, all these things can also be a factor in crashes. So we're trying to look at all of this in a lot more of a systemic way to try and figure out what's going on out there and what we need to do about it.
You're a national expert on behavioral traffic safety issues, as we've quickly come to learn. A common experience for anyone who walks or rides a bike in the U.S. Is almost being hit or being hit by a vehicle. Is much of the pedestrian safety discourse in the country mainly shifting responsibility, if you will, to the vulnerable road users and really enabling a continuation of the status quo?
Well, I think it's reversing. I think that's the way it used to be, or it has been historically. I think that there was a mentality of you need to find someone to focus your programs on. So like when we talk about drunk driving, we focus on the drunk driver. And I think maybe the mentality was like if we're focusing on pedestrian safety, we need to focus on the pedestrians. But that's really not the case because non-motorized road users exist in this transportation system that's really not built for them for the most part. Go to any place in the United States and you won't find crosswalks where they should be or sidewalks where there should be. And so what's changing now is a lot of conversation about how that is backwards and we need to flip that around and look at the bigger system to figure out how we can protect people.
When you look at other countries, they'll use road design to slow cars and save lives. Should the U.S. Look to do the same? Do we do the same in certain places?
We absolutely should be. You can see it depending on where you are. I think a lot of cities and urban communities have taken steps to control speed through the design of the roadway, and that's really great. But it doesn't necessarily always fit everywhere. So it's definitely something we're taking a look at, and we should be taking a look at.
You were talking about roadway deaths, and you see how preventable these really are. So why do we have such a hard time preventing them? I mean, what can we do? What do we need to address it?
It's hard to characterize because there's a lot of different causes for different kinds of crashes, and different causes have different countermeasures you can apply.
Okay.
I think with the big picture, we see that we have a roadway. Thinking about like the last couple of years and when traffic fatalities have increased. At the time, we already have this roadways across the country that are built to prioritize the speed and convenience of cars, not necessarily to prioritize safety, and certainly not the safety of non-motorized road users. You have safety issues where we haven't really cracked the code on how to change people's minds about it, like distracted driving, speeding. Speeding is pervasive. It's been pervasive for decades. And no matter where you go, people are speeding over the speed limit, and we can't figure out how to stop that. And then there are issues like vehicle safety. Cars today are perhaps the safest they've ever been, but there's still opportunities we're leaving on the table to make them safer, to make them more crash-worthy for people inside and outside the car, believe it or not. So there's all of this. I think we have a sense of what we need to do. It's a matter of marshaling the resources to implement effective countermeasures everywhere at the same time.
The Governors Highway Safety Association and General Motors, they're collaborating, right, to combat distracted driving. Tell us about that project.
Of course. So when it comes to distracted driving, it's an issue we've been dealing with as a country for about 20 years, right? At least with regards to distraction from wireless devices, cell phones, smartphones. At least that's the way most people think about it. And we wanted to put together a comprehensive report that explains all the different facets of the issue, what the data says about prevalence, about what's occurring in crashes, how police officers are enforcing distracted driving laws, how we at the safety community are talking to people about distracted driving, figure out what's going on out there in the states, what are the best practices, and where are the gaps, what more do we need to do to address distracted driving. So our report has a ton of recommendations, but I think one of the most important things that we keep coming back to is this idea of culture and people's cultural ideas about distracted driving. And no matter what we do to enforce laws, to have community programs, we're trying to implement technology that can prevent distracted driving. But I think until we change people's minds about distraction and have people have the mindset of like, I shouldn't be doing this in the first place, that's what ultimately will make the most difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, you see it all the time. You just look to your left or right, you see people driving while they're looking at their phones all the time. It's wild. I want to talk about e-scooters for a second, right? It's a novelty. Really, a few years ago, it seems like they're here to stay. Because they're not cost prohibitive for personal use. Scooter share systems are expanding or launching in more cities. What are you guys doing to prioritize safety for, I guess, you could say a really rapidly growing mode of transportation?
Sure. So, yeah, as you say, within the last couple of years, we've seen e-scooters pop up in many communities, and our members are safety authorities in the state. So they would get a phone call and they're like, what is this now? So we had to figure out how do we respond to this? And I think we released a report about micromobility within the last few years. And I think the main takeaway with kind of the things that we're seeing are there's not so much like fatal crashes involving scooters or e-scooters, but a lot of injury crashes. And I think that reflects the low speed at which they're happening and perhaps people misusing them or making mistakes with them. The other thing that I think we try to keep in mind is that it still is very hyper-local. You have e-scooter programs in cities and urban communities, and so it's not like everywhere in the way that other cars are. So I think with those two things in mind, you kind of put a frame around the issue. But at the same time, there are obviously opportunities to do a lot of good within that community, to work with e-scooter providers on safety messaging, to talk about best practices and safe use and how to be a part of traffic when you're on a scooter and around pedestrians. So many of our members are venturing into that area, especially where these scooters are available.
It's funny. I see them on Broadway in Nashville all the time.
Yeah,
I say, boy, this can't be a great idea. But that's just on that one street. Listen, our roadways are going through, I guess you could say, a digital transformation, right? So what technologies do you folks see increasing safety through data-driven technology and the advancements that they're making there, which literally, every week seems to be something new?
Well, I can talk about three major trends that I think are emblematic of the role of technology in highway safety. The first trend is vehicle automation, which is in the news all the time, and we have companies, and some of them are our partners, who are doing really exciting work to develop fully self-driving vehicles. And this is the Waymos of the world, Aurora. There are a couple other major players in that space, and that's really exciting. But I think there's no debate that those will save a lot of lives, and that you take the driver out of the equation, you can prevent a lot of different kinds of crashes. It'd be great to get that technology out there, but I think that the challenge that we have is that we're not seeing the widespread deployment as perhaps we thought we would 5 or 10 years ago. So until we get that stuff out there into communities everywhere, we probably won't see all that much of a difference in crash numbers. So that's perhaps farther off in the future. But that's related to the second vehicle technology trend, which is driver assistance features, or what are sometimes called ADAS, advanced driver assistance features. And these are things that are on the lower level of automation, technologies that take over driving functions temporarily or passively. So automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, blind spot warnings. A lot of these are technologies that are available to consumers right now. You may, if you bought a new car in the last couple of years that has, the technology package, you probably have a lot of these features on your car already that are helping you. So the thing here is this is not automation. This is not full automation. You still need to be fully engaged as a driver, and you're ultimately responsible for anything happens. They're kind of like co-pilot features. They're supposed to help you drive the car. And so what we see is this is the sector where we will probably see the most crashes prevented in the near future by this kind of technology, but also the place where we might see a lot of misuse and abuse and misunderstanding. And so we're turning our attention probably more towards that area as a place where we ought to be thinking about ways to make a difference. And then another trend we see is the big infrastructure bill that was passed by Congress last year had a provision to require in the future passive alcohol detection technology as standard equipment. It was known as the RIDE Act, and that's something that holds tremendous promise. And I think the vision is that you get in the car and there's a technology there that is completely passive. You don't have to blow it or anything. You don't have to sort of do anything, but it will automatically detect through breath or touch or your eyes or some other means whether you're impaired, and the car just won't start. And that could save thousands of lives of years. There's 10,000 people killed every year in crashes involving alcohol impaired driving. So if we can get that technology out on our roadways and get it into our communities, that can make a big difference. I think the challenge there is we're turning to the federal government to advance that rulemaking, and figuring out how to do it and working out all the technical issues is a big task, but I think it's an important one that we need to tackle.
Yeah, oh my goodness, that would be an absolute game changer. I mean, you'd have a lot of angry drunks who can't start their car, but it would certainly save lives, and it would save them from a lot of legal trouble as well.
Yeah.
Again, just an absolute game changer. And listen, I don't see why that safety feature wouldn't be too far down the road. Here at the Infrastructors, right? We were looking at new AI technology that can replace those rubber tubes that we see all over the roads. We looked into it. The tubes are federally required to count traffic. They also use sensors and require lane closures that create traffic. Lots of traffic and pollution. AI sensors can be mounted at the side of the roadway, keeping roadway workers out of danger, right, and eliminating the need for the pavement to actually be ripped up while we all sit in traffic. You think the GHSA would support the use of AI to obtain this federally mandated data, get rid of the rubber tubes?
I think we should be looking at all opportunities we might have to use technology in innovative ways and hopefully save money and time and effort. But the thing is, I think about this sounds like some sort of V2I or vehicle to infrastructure technology. And I think about the speed in which the auto industry has changed cars, the speed in which the wireless industry has put tons of stuff on our phones. But then I think over here in infrastructure, when we go to change infrastructure, that takes longer sometimes. We look at our roadways across the country; they are often rated poorly. Some places can't keep the lanes striped. Potholes and whatnot. And then so the idea of we're going to put a bunch of sensors into the roadway sounds great, but where do we get the money, and do we have the capability to do it? And I think there's going to be communities that are going to pitch in and do it, but I think that's a longer term discussion overall, not just this specific technology, but all kinds of in the road sensor technology. But hopefully we can increase safety and do things more effectively.
Right. Yeah. Listen, that's the bottom line, right? You work closely with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, state and local governments, and the highway safety community to implement life-saving programs, right? Your member state highway safety officers, are they hamstrung by complex program rules, the guidelines on what highway safety programs they can implement, other administrative burdens? I mean, when lives are on the line, do you feel like they're hamstrung by government rules?
Unfortunately, absolutely. In fact, I think a large part of why GHSA exists here in DC is to keep everyone's eyes on the prize, the larger prize of focusing on safety and not so much on bureaucracy. And I can give you a couple of examples. There's a lot of rules that are because of laws that Congress has passed, because of rules that the Federal Office of Management Budget have established for all federal grants, and then rules that DOT or the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had set itself. And they end up, they may be well-intentioned, but I guess the inadvertent effect is they end up making it more difficult to implement programs. So one idea is like there's a federal rule that programs that have some sort of match, in other words, the state has to pitch in money, they have to match money in order to get the federal funding to put together the program. If you have a match, you can't do fixed amount awards. So fixed amount award is like the idea of like, if you have a grant, we're going to pay you this much, no matter how much time and money it takes. It's a fixed amount. It's a fixed award. But there's a rule that you can't do that. And all of our members programs have match. So effectively, we can't issue fixed amount awards. But the challenge is like on the state and local side, we think, well, we have programs like child passenger safety technicians where you have car seat check events. These are tremendous programs where you can take your car for free, get your child safety seat installed for free. They'll figure it out. They'll do all the work for you. Who knows how many lives saved and injuries were prevented by these programs. But and it involves a lot of work. This universe of technicians, they do basically the same thing, taking the same number of hours to do the same tasks. Why don't we just set one single rate and simplify all the paperwork we have to implement this program? But because of this rule, NHTSA advises the states we can't really do that. You got to figure out a bunch of different rates. You got to keep track of all this stuff, and just multiplies the work of administering this grant. There are a ton of other examples like that where it's just creating more paperwork, seemingly for its own benefit, multiplying the tracking and the oversight that is involved with all of this work that's done. And to tell the truth, the infrastructure bill that was passed last year, I think our partners spent a tremendous amount of time just trying to undo stuff that's just not useful anymore. Some requirement for bureaucracy that was established decades ago where the state has to pay someone to do some calculation. It just ends up in a filing cabinet, and that's the end of it. We're trying to get rid of all that stuff. Let's streamline things. People are dying out there on the roads, and we want to make it as easy as possible to implement programs that will save lives.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Listen, one of the things, Russ, before I let you go, one of the things we've discussed here on the Infrastructors is decreasing the need for a police stop to enforce minor traffic violations, right? Driving without insurance, for example, or driving with expired tags. Does the GHSA support using technologies that can really supplement existing and necessary traffic enforcement, if you will, conducted by sworn law enforcement officers? Make these violations a mail notice to the citizen, really, instead of a police stop, right? So technology gets your license plate. We see you have an expired insurance card or whatever it may be. You get something in the mail, kind of like when you're driving through the cities, you get a speeding ticket from a traffic camera. Do you see this being more prevalent in the future where police officers don't have to make traffic stops for the minor violations?
Absolutely. So I would say that we have traffic enforcement that goes on all across the country, and unfortunately that's still needed because of the tremendous value it provides. We're stopping dangerous driving when we see it. We're holding drivers accountable. You have that general deterrent effect. You're driving, anyone driving down the roadway, you see a bunch of brake lights come on up ahead. What's the most likely reason? It's because there's a police officer there. People slow down. People react to that. Prevents a lot of dangerous driving. The problem is, at the same time, we're also at this inflection point with law enforcement, and you have these instances of abuse and racial profiling, so we can't go on as we could. So I think our task has been, how do we preserve the life-saving benefits of traffic enforcement while also pushing to achieve more equitable outcomes? And one of the ways we do that is to decrease or eliminate these pretextual stops, which you mentioned things like tags hanging from the window, or window tint, or the light on your license plate, or whatever it might be. These things that really have negligible impact on safety, and they certainly aren't the causes of thousands of crashes every year, but police officers use them as a pretext for something else. And so we think traffic enforcement is best spent on those higher priorities. Drunk driving, 10,000 deaths a year. speeding, lack of restraint, distracted driving, these things we know are causing crashes and killing people out there on the roadways. We want police officers focused on that stuff. It's not this mysterious, it's no mystery of how to find these people. Everyone's speeding. They're speeding everywhere. If you hired a police officer today, they could probably spend their entire 20-year career doing nothing all day long but handing out speeding tickets.
Right?
They'd never run out of drivers that are speeding, right? So maybe if we had more of that, we get people to slow down. So I think, anything we can do to find a different way to address these protectural reasons or equipment violations and get traffic enforcement focused on the things that will make the greatest safety impact, I think we would be headed in the right direction.
And Russ, one final question. Most importantly, will the Nationals have a better season than they did this past year, or no?
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Russ Martin, Governors Highway Safety Association. Russ, thanks so much. Little time here on the Infrastructors. Very informative, my friend. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you, too.
Oh, my friends, that's all the time we have today here on the Infrastructors. Join us next time for our conversation with the Deputy Director of the California Office of Traffic Safety, Timothy Weisberg.